have a deeper, richer experience of appreciation and connection with the poem. So we're not so much thinking about it as getting inside the poem and experiencing it from the inside out. And we'll get a chance to practice that when we get to the poems. But this kind of relentless obsessive thinking can make us crazy. I mean, it can literally drive you crazy. Eckhart Tolle, before he had his awakening experience, was on the verge of suicide. I mean, he talks about being, just unable to stand the mental noise, the unceasing thinking that was driving him mad. And he had a sudden awakening experience. And afterwards, he says, I don't have to think. I can think what I want to, but I don't have to. It's purely a matter of choice, which sounds wonderful. When I lived in New York, I remember seeing a homeless man on the subway waiting for a train and talking loudly to himself, gesticulating, having a really intense argument with someone in his mind, just ranting and raving and about the wrongs he had suffered and vowing revenge and just went on and on. And I thought, oh, this is shocking. I mean, it's disturbing. But I also felt like, well, this is kind of how my mind is. I just don't say these things out loud in front of total strangers. But I was familiar with the being carried away by some problem or some issue that you have with somebody and the mind just being unable to let go of it. So it was an interesting kind of illustration. But dropping into non-conceptual awareness is what can free us from this kind of thinking. And that's always available to us. And the practice is simple, but not easy. And the practice is to unhook from the story and greet each moment freshly without the impulse to smother it with wave after wave of mental elaboration. And this is called in Zen bare attention, as you know, with just this quality. And haiku are wonderful exemplars of this. And we'll look at a few haiku today. This sort of just this. There's no room in a haiku for mental elaboration. And it's a wonderful thing about them that the limitations of the form are in fact freeing. I did a retreat at Spirit Rock this summer with Trudy Goodman and James Baraz and a Tibetan teacher, Anand Thupten. And he gave a talk and said something that really struck me as powerful and true. He said, awareness is already awakened. Awareness is already awakened. It's already enlightened. Sorry, same. And I've been thinking about that ever since. Why would that be? And I think it's because awareness is free from the delusion of self. It's free from grasping and aversion. It's free from the three poisons of greed and ignorance and hatred. It's inherently steady and serene, regardless of whatever happens in or passes through it. And in this respect, I'm reminded of something Krishnamurti said towards the end of his life. He was giving a talk, and at one point, he kind of broke off and said, almost kind of conspiratorially, he said, "Do you want to know my secret?" And of course, everyone was amazed. They were just like, "Oh my gosh, we're going to hear. He's going to deliver this great truth, the secret of his own awakening." And Krishnamurti said, "I don't mind what happens," which is probably not exactly what people were expecting to hear. But it strikes me as another way of saying, I live from awareness. I don't live from the ego, which is tossed and turned by what happens. I live from awareness. I don't mind what happens. So we can take refuge in awareness, in this steady, empty knowing in this aspect of our consciousness that's already awakened, already enlightened. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to make awareness change in some way in order to wake up. It's already awake. The practice is just making contact, staying in relation to, conscious relation to awareness. But it's always available. We just have to drop the story and turn towards welcome. So I want to do a little experiment with you and practice with you of non-conceptual knowing. So this will just take a minute, but I would like you to just choose an object that's nearby that you can either pick up and hold or look at. And this can be anything, but it's best if it's a familiar object, an ordinary object, something that you either use or look at every day. You know, it might be a pen or a coffee cup or a lamp or book or just whatever is near to hand. And I'm going to do this with you and just pick it up and look at it closely without thinking about it. So just noticing everything you can notice, just let your gaze rest on and study this object. You might notice its shape, its texture, its size, its weight, its color, its warmth or coolness, the way that it holds the light, the way it occupies space. Whatever it is, just take a minute, just look at it without thinking about it. Yeah. And when you're ready, you can just set it aside or let your gaze lift away from it. For me, this is a very refreshing experience. It's a way to let the commentary quiet down and just be with what is. And this is something that, of course, you can practice anywhere at any time. And I would encourage you to practice just to stop throughout the day and have a 1 minute meditation where you are able to be with something, to perceive, to stay with something without thinking about it and feeling the freedom that can come with that. And maybe when we get to the discussion part today, if you want to share something about your experience there, we can do that. Andrew Olensky, a Buddhist teacher, says, as the senses fill up, the mind empties out. As the senses fill up, the mind empties out. So as we notice, as we feel sensations, the mind tends to quiet down, tends to empty because we're fully engaged in perception. And I'll just say one other thing. I'm going to let Nisargadatta say one other thing about abiding in awareness. Beautiful quotation. And I think it's important to remember that this kind of awareness is not a cold knowing, but a warm knowing. And Nisargadatta says, as you watch your mind, you discover yourself as the watcher. And when you stand motionless, only watching, you discover yourself as the light behind the watcher. That source alone is. Go back to that source and abide there. If you stay in open awareness, you find it is permeated with a light and love that you have never known, and yet you recognize it at once as your own nature, more true than any story of a temporary limited self. This is taking refuge in awareness in Buddha. So I know that's a lot of language around something that I said is very hard to talk about. You can you can feel the paradox of trying to say much about awareness, but I hope at least it gives us a little ground to stand on when we do our meditation and look at the poems. So I would like to do a little practice with you now. I think we'll just maybe sit for, let's see, go until, let's just sit for 10 or maybe 15 minutes. We'll see. And just to, lightly hold the attention to rest in open awareness. So you're all meditators, so go ahead and find your meditation posture, a posture of upright alertness and dignity, a posture that is supportive of mindfulness. And this can be done eyes open or closed, whatever is most comfortable for you. And as we come towards the end of this meditation, I'll read the first poem I sent to you all, which I hope you called Ask Me by William Stafford. So we'll experience that poem while we're in meditation, and that can be quite a rich experience. So just begin by noticing how it feels just to be sitting here right now in this body, in this space, in this moment. You might bring attention to your feet on the floor, or if you're sitting cross-legged, to your legs, your seat beneath you. Just feeling that contact with the ground. Maybe there's a quality of tingling, of warmth or weight, maybe a subtle vibration in the feet. Maybe the feet are aware of the energy of the earth underneath us, even if it's separated by the floor of the building that you're in. Maybe that energy is still finding a way through to our feet and to our body. And feeling the support of the chair or the cushion. Feeling your contact, be sensing the texture underneath your seat. And letting the body relax, letting the shoulders drop, be loose, letting the arms be loose, hang loosely from the shoulders. Feeling the hands, one and the other, resting on the thighs. Letting go of any tension in the face, neck, the head, letting the jaw be loose, letting the eyes be soft, and the brow smooth. And now bringing attention to the breath, just noticing your breathing wherever it's most vivid to you, be in the nostrils, the rise and fall of the belly or the chest. Just being a kind of companion to the breath, noticing being with the breath, not trying to change it. And now letting that go and just letting your attention expand to include the space that you're in. You might feel the coolness of the air on your skin, these sounds in the room or beyond the room. And now just resting in open awareness, not looking for anything, not tracking anything, just being aware of whatever is arising, lasting for a while, and passing away. Sounds are coming and going, sensations in the body are arising and changing, disappearing, thoughts coming and going. but awareness itself is always the same, always unchanging. Ask Me by William Stafford. Sometime when the river is ice, ask me mistakes I have made. Ask me whether what I have done is my life. Others have come in their slow way into my thought, and some have tried to help or to hurt. Ask me what difference their strongest love or hate has made. I will listen to what you say. You and I can turn and look at the silent river and wait. We know the current is there, hidden, and there are comings and goings from miles away that hold the stillness exactly before us. What the river says, that is what I say. Yeah, and as you're ready, just come back to the group from your eyes if they've been closed. And so now we'll shift into looking at these poems together. Chloe has shared the Stafford poem on the screen, and you may have a copy as well. But I'll read the poem again, and then we can begin talking about it. And as you may know, I like to approach poems in a rather different way than is typical. So I like to encourage us to shift from the interpretive mode to the appreciative mode. So instead of focusing on what we think the poem is saying or what it means, or expressing some confusion about it, we go towards what we like about the poem, what feels particularly alive or lit up or resonant, what engages us. And we let that take us where it will. Um, we go towards what we like. So I'll read the poem again, and then we can talk about it. And I know we have a big group, but we'll try to accommodate everyone who wishes to speak. Ask me. Sometime when the river is ice, ask me mistakes I have made. Ask me whether what I have done is my life. Others have come in their slow way into my thought, and some have tried to help or to hurt. Ask me what difference their strongest love or hate has made. I will listen to what you say. You and I can turn and look at the silent river and wait. We know the current is there, hidden, and there are comings and goings from miles away that hold the stillness exactly before us. what the river says, that is what I say. So yeah, what do you like about this poem? What feels particularly alive, engaging, or be beautiful? It can be a word or a line, a moment. It doesn't have to be big. Yeah, just what do you like? Then I guess raise your Zoom hand would be the best way to do this. And of course, it's nice to just sit with the poem in silence too. That may be the best response, but it can also be quite engaging to just talk about how it feels for us. Anyone have a favorite line in the poem?
I
I,
felt I
I'm sorry.
felt the
Uh,
current underneath. I felt it's coming out of meditation was my own breath. The stillness of the river. I felt I felt both the stillness, the icy river, and I felt the current underneath. The eternal current was really beautiful.
Oh, that's lovely. That's so lovely. I felt the current. And that's very different from thinking about what Stafford is saying there. It's just like, yeah, I felt it. I mean, that's the quality of getting inside the poem and experiencing it really fully, which we can't do when we're focused on interpreting. That's beautiful. And you say you felt it as your breath. I mean, that's also wow. I mean, just to be able to have your own bodily experience of what the poem is describing is is really beautiful. Yeah, thank you for that. I feel that also. Uh, Molly Scott says the last line. Yeah. Molly, do you want to speak to that? Or I know you're just making a comment in the chat, but I'd love to hear more if you care to share like what is it about that last line that's so powerful? Uh,
I I
exactly.
I remember, and the super moon and the river,
Mm.
just the presence of presence,
The presence of presence. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
what a present it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a powerful and rather mysterious last line. It brings the poem to such an incredible sense of closure. There's a film of him reading the poem at the Library of Congress, and the way he says the last line is just extraordinary. Yeah. What the river says, that is what I say. But of course, the river is silent. You and I can turn and look at the silent river. So it's a very mysterious, and I don't want to diminish the mystery of the poem by like interpreting it. I think, it's wonderful to let the poems remain in their kind of unknowable, ultimately unknowable quality. The poem that can be explained is not the true poem. Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
Do you think we can do that with each other?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's yes, we can drop our preconceptions, our need to know, and be with this mysterious manifestation of life. Thank you for that, Molly. Greg, you.
So I really appreciate the intimacy. I mean, this is a poem written to us, to me. So I like the sometime ask me, and then I will listen to
Yeah,
what you say, And then what the river says, that is what I say. I mean, that's just sort of the structure of this,
Yeah.
this relationship.
Relationship.
Yeah.
Yes. That's beautiful. I think those are two really key aspects of engaging with poetry. A sense of intimacy. I mean, you're feeling the intimacy in the poem, but you're also having your own intimate relationship with it. Poetry is profoundly relational art. And yeah, there is that quality of like, he's speaking to me. I mean, it does seem that there is another person in the poem. You and I can turn a look. Well, you can read that both ways. You can say he's speaking to the reader, or maybe there is an implied listener actually in the poem. Doesn't matter, but it still carries that quality of intimacy, of a kind of shared sort of secret experience. Oh, he's letting us in on it. Yeah. Yeah, I feel that also. Sometime when the rivers ask me mistakes I made, which is a striking thing also to say, like, ask me my mistakes. Yeah. Ask me whether what I have done is my life. Yeah. What else feels especially rich or pleasing or interesting? I especially love the middle part of that second stanza. We know the current is there hidden, and there are comings and goings from miles away that hold the stillness exactly before us. And again, it's a rather mysterious thing to say, and yet it feels true. We know the current is there. We can't see it, but we know it's there. And we know that there are comings and goings from miles away that hold the stillness exactly before us. These causes and conditions, we might say. Yeah, Bruce.
Yeah, thanks, John. What came to mind was, as an elementary school student on my way to school during the winter in South Minneapolis, I walked along and sometimes on Minnehaha Creek, which went for about 30 miles from Lake Minnetonka, which is a huge lake, all the way to the Mississippi River. And that was our playground. And we were in the waters in the summer, but in the winter, we could actually walk on the ice, and we looked forward to the freezing time. But we were always wondering, is it strong enough yet to hold us? Because the current did move underneath, and it came from many miles away, and it had many miles yet to go before it merged with the Mississippi.
Yeah. 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 So reading the poem kind of brought that experience back for you in a vivid kind of way.
A fondness and a great respect for something that was part of our lives in multiple seasons.
Yeah. Yeah. That's wonderful. A great respect. And we feel that in the poem too, right? There's a very humble, respectful attitude that our tone of the poem. I grew up in Nebraska, and I can remember doing the same thing, walking on, a creek, iced over, and seeing the current moving underneath, and just wondering, like, is this going to hold me? Am I going to go through? And of course, sometimes you did go through. So he takes a very real experience, but it has this mysterious power that emerges from it in the way that he speaks about it. Yeah, thank you for that, Bruce.
And just one other aspect, that it was stationary in the ice, but it was dynamic under the ice. Well, kind of like the ever present now.
Ever present now, ever present awareness, something that we know is there but cannot see. The life force, maybe. Yeah. 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 And then Doreen.
Yeah, I live in Spokane and I live 1 block from the Spokane River. So I spend a lot of time down there with the dog. And this particular land, right where I am, actually, is where the Spokane Salish tribe s- spent much of their time, and this is where they fished for salmon in the late summer, along with the Coeur d'Alene Salish and some of the others. And what this says to me is this comings and goings from miles away is this the sense that I get by this river where I live, that of timelessness. I mean,
Yeah.
the history that is is actually embedded in the land here. There is no then and now. I mean, it is the comings and goings are still coming and going.
Yeah.
So that's the feeling I get from this.
Yeah. There may be superficial changes, but there's something deeper than that that does not change, right?
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and it's beautiful the way these poems can take us into our own experience, can remind us of things we may have forgotten or help us to see things in a slightly different way or more clearly. But yeah, that's lovely. This quality of timelessness, of stepping out of the world of time and change and into a timeless realm.
Hmm.
And that would be so nourishing and refreshing. Yeah, thank you for that. Doreen.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Because my photo's not coming up. I just wanted to make sure. Well, there were two things. And John, you mentioned the first one that really struck me, and that's the first line. I mean, it was sort of to ask me the mistakes that I have. I mean, that was just like, whoa, that's the last thing,
Yeah.
most of us ever think of saying. And that it was preceded by when the river is ice,
Yeah. Yeah.
because just before it even got to ask me mistakes, I could really see the river,
Yeah.
even though I have actually never seen a river frozen.
Mm.
I'm in North Carolina and I live near the Yadkin River, which I see a lot, but it never freezes.
Yeah.
And so, but I could picture it being frozen and the current underneath it. And I just felt that I got such uh, a visual
Yeah.
of this,
Yeah.
and him talking to someone and being so open and sharing this experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Stafford, in an essay, he talks about in poems, surprises must come early and often to engage the reader. And it's
Mm.
rather surprising. Typically, rivers are, of course, highly symbolic, in, all the way back to Heraclitus, of course. But we think of rivers as, flowing rivers, but not east over, so that's a bit of a surprise. And then not ask me my triumphs, ask me all my wonderful qualities. No, ask me the mistakes I have. That's also a surprise. And therefore, we're engaged by that.
Mhm.
And then others have come in their slow way into my thought. Some have tried to help or ask me what difference their strongest love or hate have made. That's extraordinary too.
Yes.
Like, and it just saying like, it makes no difference. And Stafford was a conscientious objector. He was a Quaker, a pacifist in World War II, and was sent to the work camps.
Um,
So had an experience of being, reviled by many people who didn't take kindly to those who sat out that Anyway, that's biographical information that you don't need to know to fully experience the poem, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Well, any other comments before we do the next poem? Maybe we should move on. This poem, also by Stafford, called Listening. Oh, Chloe, can you scroll down? Yeah. Great. Thank you. Listening. My father could hear a little animal step or a moth in the dark against the screen. And every far sound called the listening out into places where the rest of us have never been. More spoke to him from the soft, wild night than came to our porch for us. Wind. We would watch him look up and his face go keen till the walls of the world flared. My father heard so much that we still stand, inviting the quiet by turning the face, waiting for a time when something in the night will touch us too from that other place. So again, what do you like about this poem? What feels especially lit up, alive? And again, it can be a line, a phrase, and you don't have to feel like you have to explain why you like it. I mean, we may talk about that, but you don't have to have a reason. You can just say, wow, I love this line. Whatever. Yes, Sharon.
I was just going to say, I like the simplicity of the first line. Those words, little animal step.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Very
Like-
basic.
Very what?
Very basic.
Basic. Yes.
Language.
Simple. Yeah. The poem presents no obstacles to entering it, right? There's nothing that's difficult or confusing, or there's no impediment to actually entering the poem. My father could hear a little animal step.
Exactly.
And you automatically want to know more about that. Like, yeah. Yeah, the simplicity, the directness of the poem, very appealing. Joanne.
Well, as Sharon said, the first line, but the first line and the second line for me, my father could hear a little animal step or a moth in the dark against the screen. Just the imagery that brings up in my mind is so, so astute that it almost takes my breath away.
Yeah. 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 Being that sensitive that you can hear a little animal, a rabbit or a possum or something, something out there in the dark, or a moth in the dark against the screen. I mean, these are very subtle sounds and subtle noticings. And yeah, it almost takes your breath away. Think of being that attuned to the world that you could perceive, poet could perceive. And Eileen has said in the chat, oh, I'm sorry, I'm losing track of this. Again, it is the invitation to wait, not for anything solid, but for the beautiful emptiness within the act of waiting. Oh, that's lovely. We don't need results or answers to live in wonder. Yes, results and answers actually diminish our capacity to experience wonder. That's beautiful. The invitation to wait, not for anything solid, but for the beautiful emptiness within the act. Yeah, empty knowing. Don't need results or answers to live in wonder. All these comments are great. I like the way he captures experience of stopping, attending to something subtle or some ways it reminds me of the river poem. I like the mystery imagery here. I also like the love she seems to have for the father, reverence, and sharing a moment with him. Yeah, that's also very strongly present in the poem, the relationship between the son and the father, in a quality of reverence, right? I mean, more spoke to him, well, the whole thing, but more spoke to him from the soft, wild night that came to our porch for us on the wind. We would watch him look up, his face go till the walls of the world flared white. Yeah. And my father heard so much that we still stand, inviting the quiet by turning the face. There's a legacy that the father, I mean, he's been exemplary in how attuned he is, how aware he is, how attentive, that the son and presumably his siblings have internalized this capacity to listen, this way of knowing and being. So yeah, quality of reverence. Yeah, thank you. Beautiful comments. Yeah.
I realized how I'm a poet, and I'd like to think I'm well read in poetry, and I've certainly heard of William Stafford. I never realized how reflective he is, introspective, and quite. Now I feel like buying collection.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. Oh, he's a beautiful poet. Yeah. I mean, he wrote an enormous amount of poetry, and it's not all great, but the poems that are great are really inspiring. Yeah. Yeah. I would encourage you to, maybe pick up his selected poems. With just so many gems like this one, the other one.
I
Yeah.
have a night table like this.
Yeah.
Because I'm an editor, so all my clients send me their books.
Oh,
So
okay.
I have 150 books sitting there, including my own.
Yeah. No, I'm the same way. It's a mess, but it's
By the way,
you what?
I've heard of you. I have feeling I have some in your book.
Oh, wonderful.
Didn't you edit something? And then
Yeah. The Poetry of Impermanence, Mindfulness, and Joy. And then I have a new anthology called The Poetry of Grief, Gratitude, and Reverence, which is kind of a companion. But
oh,
thanks.
no, your name.
I'm thrilled that you heard of it. I like to say I'm the most famous poet nobody's ever heard of. But yeah, thank you for that comment. And yeah, Greg.
The invocation of space, the space that's opened by sound coming from somewhere else. So the line, till the walls of the world flared, widened. All of a sudden, you're in this bigger space. In the last stanza, will touch us too from that other place. There is room here. We're not confined to this, this noise that's always going on in our heads.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, the poem just opens out in that sense of spaciousness is just so powerful.
Which is often conjured by sound. I mean, in my sitting, bird song, and oh my God, there's space.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, exactly. I mean, meditating on sounds, it opens the mind because you're no longer, focusing on the breath so much, but there's a sense of spaciousness, and that can also help the quality of awareness to come more into the foreground, that open, empty knowing. But yeah, I love that line. The walls of the world flared. The walls of the world flared white. And that word flared, we think of light being like a flare, illuminating, but also opening, widening. Yeah. Yeah, I love that too. That's really nice. Other things that seem especially engaging.
I really enjoy the line, inviting the quiet by turning the face. And I find myself kind of wandering through turning towards the Father, turning away from the Father, being in watching the Father, one becomes so absorbed in the Father's attentiveness and experience that one maybe invites the quiet for themselves, almost a different encounter with the quiet by turning the face away from the Father so that they can then be touched from that other place themselves.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I can interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, that's okay.
I was just looking at those lines when you said that. I also found that's really powerful. And I think you're right. The Father is demonstrating a quality of attention and mindfulness. And the Son is bringing that same quality of attention and mindfulness to the Father's attention and mindfulness. So it has this kind of doubling effect. And I love that he says, inviting the quiet by turning the face. He's not inviting sounds, inviting the quiet in which sounds appear. I mean, it's subtle, right? I mean, the poem is simple, but it's very subtle. Inviting the quiet by turning the face, kind of leaning in, You think of those like a dog, kind of tilting, waiting for a time when something in the night will touch us too from that other place. Something, other place, this other world. Again, kind of invoking this mystery at the heart of existence. Thank you for that. The poem is subtly rhymed as well. I don't know if you noticed this, but screen and ben, wind and white, and then keen, face and place. It, again, subtle, but there is this sound pattern that's also happening in the poem that we can attend to the poem's sounds in the same way that the Father attends to the sounds in the environment. Bruce.
Yeah, thank you. The last two lines, waiting for a time when something in the night will touch us too from that other place. He uses three different senses of hearing, seeing, and touching,
Right.
which are in the now, but we don't know when the insight will arrive. So we're waiting in the night, and we're blessed, hopefully by grace, from that other place.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, waiting for a time when something in the night will touch us. Excuse me, I hadn't fully kind of registered what a surprise that is, will touch us too from that other place. You're right. It invokes the senses of hearing and seeing and of touch, and kind of contact, no separation. It's a kind of boundary dissolving experience. And that too can take us into this quality of open awareness where there's no boundaries. I have to just let my cat out of the room. Just take 1 second. All right. My cat is very demanding and persistent. So,
You also that's true.
exactly. Mark Twain said, he said, there are no ordinary cats. Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. I love this poem. I love the way Stafford conjures this beautiful experience of this incredibly subtle attunement to the world. And it's an inspiration to us, I think, to listen more carefully, to be attuned, to be open to the arrival of some mystery. There's a lovely haiku that I include in this new anthology by Peggy Willis Lyles, where she says, We turn out all the lights to hear the rain. We turn off all the lights to. But let's do the next poem by Denise Levertov called Aware, and then we'll look at these haiku. Okay, Aware, and this is in the Poetry of Impermanence, Mindfulness, and Joy. Aware. When I opened the door, I found the vine leaves speaking among themselves in abundant whispers. My presence made them hush their green breath, embarrassed the way humans stand up, buttoning their jackets, acting as if they were leaving anyway, as if the conversation had ended just before you arrived. I liked the glimpse I had, though, of their obscure gestures. I liked the sound of such private voices. Next time I'll move like cautious sunlight, open the door by fractions, eavesdrop peacefully. Yeah, what do you like about this poem? Another poem about listening.
This, especially the eavesdrop peacefully, takes me back to Stafford's, the end of his poem we just finished about it. There's this feeling for me of part of this reverence and part of this experience the Father was offering, teaching, was to be touched in the heart, not just the physical sensation of touch, but for the heart to really be open enough to be touched, and then to eavesdrop, to be so tender in the presence of another, or even opening the door to these leaves, to be so tender and gentle and just allow what is there.
Yeah. That's beautiful. It's so well said, to be tender and gentle, to just allow what's there. And it is a reverent way of being in the world. And that's a way of being that I think we desperately need to recover, because we just, as a culture, we just tend to crash through the world, destroying things. And this quality of subtle noticing, of being with, paying this kind of attention is so powerful and so needed. I mean, it's so nourishing for us when we have that experience, and it's beautiful to read about it and to have these examples of powerful experiences of that kind. Next time, it's like an aspiration. Next time, I'll move like cautious sunlight, open the door by fractions, eavesdrop peacefully. And it's the peaceful quality that's really crucial. The tenderness, as you say, because of course she opens the door and she made them hush their green breath. She disturbs their private conversation, and they grow silent. Next time she vows to be more quiet herself so that she can participate in this conversation. Sharon, did you have your hand up a second ago?
Yeah, I was just going to emphasize that word peacefully, especially like you just did, though, especially coming after the word eavesdrop, which could be invasive.
Right. Yeah.
So there is a way to eavesdrop with consciousness of what you're doing in such a way, in a peaceful, gentle, appreciative way.
Right. Peaceful, gentle, appreciative. Yeah, I think that's exactly the way to describe it. There is a way to do that. And eavesdrop, we think of kind of sneaky. Or
Invasive.
Invasive. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And yet this brings up an old memory of mine. Years ago, I worked in a bookstore, and this young couple bought 14 volumes of the Oxford Dictionary.
Oh, yeah.
Not the abridged, the whole 14 volumes, because they loved to sit together in the evening and, in a sense, eavesdrop into the dictionary, into the depth of words and the presence of this incredible multi-vessel. And I was really struck when they told me about that. It's just, oh, how lovely.
Yeah, that is lovely. Yeah, we don't do that anymore. You just look it up online. It's a different experience. Yeah, lovely. Yeah, incredible work of scholarship, that dictionary. I worked at Oxford University Press for a while, and so I know a little bit about how that book was made. And yeah. Pablo Neruda has a wonderful poem called Ode to the Dictionary. I don't know if you can find it online, but if you can find it, it's quite wonderful.
And
If
you know my friend David Lehman, right?
Oh yeah, I do know David. Yeah.
Or
Yeah. Yeah.
I hang out with that gang.
I'm sorry.
I hang out with that gang. That best
Oh.
American poetry.
Yeah, he's a wonderful poet.
They
Yeah,
published that poem on their blog. I never made the anthology, not yet. But,
yeah.
but I made the blog.
Right. Well, that's good. Well, we only have a few minutes left, so let's just take a look at these haiku. And of course, haiku are poems that don't invite a lot of mental proliferation or commentary, and yet it's wonderful to kind of read them together. So I'll read these first two together, and then the last two maybe separately. But and these first three haiku are in my new anthology, Poetry of Gratitude and Reverence. Cherry petals, a child adds a handful to the busker's cap. Cherry petals, a child adds a handful to the busker's cap. And the next one by Connie Donlicott. Proud of umbrellas, a child opens his face to the rain. Proud of umbrellas, a child opens his face to the rain. So yeah, what kind of response do you have to these two delightful haiku?
I love haiku.
Yeah.
I've written about children too. I think they make good subjects for haiku.
Yeah.
I have one in my first book. I write a lot of haiku, actually. So I think there's a bias against them. I think that some people think that, that short poems are scoffed, but I edit a literary journal online, and we take very short poems. That's our criterion.
Mhm.
And so I don't have a big attention to long poems, except I love Whitman. But no, I love haiku because you could say so much in 3 lines, and and I'm also a stickler for the 575. I know American haiku doesn't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I like that. And I love your haiku. I know you gotta get, but I love it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
There's
Make
a
sure we have-
quality.
Yeah.
There's a quality.
Go ahead. Sorry.
There's a quality for me in both of these haiku. Isa has a haiku that I think offers a similar quality, and his is under the cherry blossoms. Who could be a stranger?
Right. Yeah. I love that. Yeah.
And there's, what the child is offering, and with all these kind of maybe adults or folks with the umbrellas, the child inviting in and being invited into what it feels like with the rain coming down. And they both have a beautiful childlike kind of simple
Innocent.
simple off.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They're so refreshing in that way. You see the child, watching people drop money into the hat and then picking up cherry petals. Acting like I have something to offer as well. Yeah, it was beautiful. And then Cap. And you have to unmute. Comment? Well, maybe Catherine first, and then we'll.
Yeah, I can go because I just have a short one. It just
Oh, yeah.
reminds me of your Peter Holmes comment.
Mm.
The child doesn't know what it's, I mean, it's just so purely doing it. Like the baby doesn't know she's a girl. She doesn't know she's a human being. The child doesn't know there's no give or gift. It's just action, it's just a pure act. It just,
Yeah.
that was evocative for me.
Yeah. Spontaneous generosity, or just spontaneous wanting to give something, imitating the adults. But the fact that it's cherry petals is just so gorgeous, like a true poetic currency. Yeah, lovely. And yeah.
Yeah, well, it's much the same thing that everybody's touching on. I think when you're a child, you're much closer to this awareness that or I felt I was much closer. I spent a lot of time in nature as a child, and it all was part of me. And then we put all this overlay of thinking on top of it. But the fact that she doesn't care, the buskers may be looking for money, to buy a cup of coffee, but that doesn't make any difference. The child
Yeah.
just offers what she has. And it's so refreshing. Thank you.
Yeah. The child hasn't entered into the world of, the transactional world of
Right.
of humans where things cost money and so on. Yeah, there's just so refreshing, the innocence of that. It's just so beautiful. I love these poems. And then, we're almost out of time, and I don't
I
want to.
think, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so for me, I just wanted to add in that I think the beauty about the poem is that if what it actually doesn't say, it implies. So for me, where it takes me is the greed of people and how we always sort of do this quid pro quo in life. And of course, nature is not that way. It just offers. And so these cherry petals sort of are the representation of not only the innocence of nature, but it's embodied in this child's hand.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. There's a poem. I can't remember the poet's name, but it's something like disgusting people arguing over the price of orchids.
Yep.
Let's see. Alice.
It brought to mind this children's book that I used to love to read. And every time, the very end of it, it was a rainy day. The little girl's going to go to school, and she gets to use her new umbrella. And it's all beautifully. And at the very end, she has to hold on to the umbrella so she doesn't hold her mother's hand.
Oh.
The first day she walked to school on her own with herself. And so now I felt that crowd, like she's part now of this bigger crowd to be able to be on her own. So that was what it reminded me of when I thought about the little girl being on her own, but in a crowd.
Yeah. Right. Right. Oh, lovely. Again, it's so great that poems kind of bring these moments back to us with a new kind of vividness. Yeah. I love that. Well, oh my gosh. I realized I should have left more time for poems, but I'll just read the last two. Fallen leaves, the abbot sweeps around them. And then my poem. No self, a water strider shatters my reflection on the pond.